Hello F11 members and welcome to the second post-production video tutorial for issue 70, November 2017. I thought I'd use the brand new, recently released version of Lightroom to process a picture I shot just a few days ago in the Franche-Comté region of France. It's a new version called Lightroom Classic that I've downloaded. And I thought I'd just highlight a few of the new features in it while working through this picture. There's been two new versions of Lightroom released, Lightroom CC Classic and Lightroom CC, the latter being predominantly a cloud-based software package. I'll be looking in detail at that in the coming months and what it means for us. But for us with existing workflows who want to work with a desktop package, working from our own backup hard drives, I think Lightroom Classic is the one to use for the moment. Really, the fundamentally important things that have changed in terms of Lightroom CC Classic are the speed with which imports and exports are done, in which the develop module works. And there's a new feature as well called range masking, which I want to introduce you to. Okay, so let's start by just highlighting one thing that's important with Lightroom Classic. If I go to the import module here, and I want to import some images here, if you come up here to where it says File Handling, make sure open that dialog there, and where it says Build Previews, if you click the option that says Embedded and Sidecar, you will get the fastest and best preview building option when Lightroom imports your images. I've noticed it is definitely quicker. So let's just look at this picture here, and if I show you as normal the before and after, so I'm going to go into the Develop module. Last light of the day on the vineyards around Chateau Chalon. Absolutely gorgeous lighting after rain showers and a real heavy dramatic sky. That's the finished image, and on the left now we see the before and after. This is the image straight out of the camera, and as you can see, it's all been exposed, so the information is all there, but the drama in the sky is lost completely. I couldn't use a grad filter on this shoot because that would have just held back the top of the cliffs and the village too much, so I had to expose for the brightest parts in the picture, knowing that I would be able to bring them out in post-production. So let's start now on this image here, and I'll go back to loop view mode, and I go back to reset, how the image came in originally. And I'm just going to click on my preset here, which will just apply a touch of saturation and sharpening to the image. So the first thing I'm going to look at is the overall brightness of the picture. I can see here my histogram I've exposed the image well. It's exposed to the right beautifully. There's no clipping of highlights or shadows. I'm just going to bring the blacks back here, as I always do. Just start with bring in the black point so that the darkest point in the image is a pure black, and there about -15 will do that. And now I'm going to move on and just look at the actual density of the picture. I'm going to use the tone curve to darken it down a touch to where I want it, about where I want it to be based on this foreground here. So the next thing I want to do now is darken down the sky. How am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to use the adjustment brush to select the area that I want to darken down. Okay, so and this time I'm going to unclick Auto Mask because I've experimented with doing it using the Auto Mask and the effect looks just unrealistic. So I'm going to unclick Auto Mask. I'm going to click on Show Selected Mask Overlay, and now I'm just going to paint in here. Bear in mind what I'm doing here at the moment is just selecting the area that I want to darken down. Okay. I can make that brush a bit bigger now. So this red is just showing me the area, the selection. It's not doing anything to the image yet. I'm not making any adjustments yet. Okay, so now I unclick the Show Selected Mask Overlay, and now I'm going to come up here and make my adjustments to the sky. So I want to darken it down, clearly. So I'm going to come back here on the exposure to around about -1 point nothing. And that's given me a nice moody sky there. It's a little bit flat, so I'm going to put some contrast in here, quite a bit actually, right up to about 48. Excuse me, I can afford to adjust my blacks as well. Now you can see if I go too far, those blues start showing me where I'm clipping, and I can afford to deal with my whites as well. I'm going to go about +20 on my whites, a little bit more there. And that's given me a sky with plenty of mood and drama. But it's also affected the top of the cliffs there. So what I can do now is use this new feature in Lightroom called range masking down here. So if I click on luminance now, and then what I can do, can you see down here, range mask luminance, move the left hand slider here, and I can see it's brightening up the top of the cliffs there. It's actually helping me bring back the details there in the cliffs. This is a feature in Lightroom that I think is really, really useful. So I'm not affecting the sky. I'm just bringing back the brightness there in the cliff there. If I go too far, it starts looking unrealistic, as with all adjustments. So we have to be subtle, as always. Nevertheless, I'm very pleased with how that's worked out there. So I'm going to click on Done there. Excuse me. Thing I want to look at now again is this area to the left of the frame there. It's looking a bit washed out, so I'm going to use Adjustment Brush again, clip on Select Mask Overlay, and just paint in this area here again, and now click that off, and I'm just going to put a touch of dehaze in there. Can you see that's really brought up that part of the image there? Tweak the blacks a little bit, come back on the blacks a touch as well. And that's really given that area much more, it's got rid of the haze there and given it dealt with that wishy-washy tones that were in that part of the image there. Okay, now there's the top of the cliffs here are still a bit dark and dense here. The overall look of the image is pretty much there, but I'm going to click on Done now. I'm going to use the adjustment brush again, and I'm going to select an area here, just really the darkest area. Oh, I'm just going to go back on myself here now, because before I do this, I'm going to come down here and click on Auto Mask. So now, if I do this, select this area, it should pick up that edge of the skyline there. Okay, just paint in here. Come down on my brush size a bit. Now, if I unclick the mask overlay, what I want to do now is just brighten that area a touch, just maybe to about 15 or so on the brightness. And I want to I can afford to tweak my whites, brighten up my whites, +30 there. Come back on my blacks a little bit because they're looking a bit wishy-washy. If I go too far, it'll show me where I'm clipping. I can afford to come back to about -15 on my blacks there. And that's really worked quite well. Just a little bit more on my exposure, I think, to about 25. And, you know, I'm looking at that picture, and that's been quite a complex image to do because of darkening down the sky without affecting unduly the cliffs and the village of Chateau Chalon perched up there above it. And I think this new range masking option within the adjustment brush and the grad tool is really going to be a very useful tool in the future. So you can rest assured that in future post-production video tutorials we'll be getting to grips with its strengths and weaknesses, and of course looking fully at the new version of Lightroom CC and assessing its functionality for us photographers. Okay, I hope that was useful, and please do, as always, send in your suggestions about what you would like to see. In the meantime, I'll leave you with this before and after of this image here, and consider what we've achieved there using the various adjustment brushes in Lightroom. Thank you.